Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. So today we are going to continue with topic 6 on Graphical User Interface GUI. So there are two parts of it. So we are going to start off with the first part. The objective of this topic are to define a subclass of JFrame to implement a customized frame window, to be able to arrange GUI component objects on a window using basic layout managers and nested panels, to write GUI application programs using JButton, JLabel, JTextFill, and other common GUI objects from the javax.swing package, to write GUI application programs using NetBeans Swing GUI tool. So Graphical User Interface. In Java, GUI-based programs are implemented by using classes from the javax.swing and java.awt packages. The Swing classes provide greater compatibility across different operating systems, OS. They are fully implemented in Java and behave the same on different operating systems. Swing has lightweight component than AWT, and Swing sits on top of AWT. So AWT, it stands for Abstract Window Toolkit. The differences between Swing and AWT. Swing is part of the Java Foundation classes. The components are platform independent and lightweight components because Swing sits on top of AWT. Swing components use the screen resource of an ancestor instead of having their own, and that's why it's called lightweight or lighter component. AWT is called the Abstract Window Tool. The components are platform dependent and they are heavyweight components. AWT components are associated with native screen resource and called heavyweight component. There are various Java GUI components that are available from the javax.swing package. For example, here we have JFrame, which is a frame. All the labels are from JLabel, and part where you can input anything from your keyboard that is inside the JTextFill. Any button that you can click, that is from the JButton. And then you can also have checkbox and also radio button, and a combo box where you can have a drop-down menu. Here is showing another example on having various GUI components from the javax.swing package. We have two screenshots over here. So the first one, it has the J menu and there's also the J label. So inside the J label, you can include an image icon. The second one, it shows where you can have your radio button and also checkbox. Here is showing the AWT Class Hierarchy from the java.awt package. So you can see over here that it has button, label, frame, dialog, text area, text field, and many more components. So these components are heavyweight user interface components. So those are the wrappers for the operating system objects. Swing is built on top of AWT with a richer set of lightweight components. So in Swing class hierarchy, which is in javax.swing, Swings sit on top of AWT. For example, we have frame over here, and inside the Swing class, it's being called as JFrame. So Swing is more of a lightweight component rather than the AWT, which is a heavyweight, because Swing provides greater compatibility across different operating systems, and they behave the same on different operating systems. GUI classes can be classified into three groups. So we can have the container, component, and also helper classes. In container classes, for example, JFrame, JPanel, and also JApplet, it is used to contain other components. Component classes, for example, JButtons, JTextFill, are subclasses of JComponent, and helper classes are the graphics, colors, and font. So these are used by components and containers to draw and place objects. In this screenshot over here, JFrame, that is a container. Inside the JFrame, when we have the JButton, JLabel, those are the components. The font or the color that is being used, those are using the helper classes. Here is showing the hierarchy of the container classes. Container classes can contain other GUI components. For example, inside JFrame, we can have panel within it. Container classes. A container contains and arranges other components, including other containers, through the use of layout managers, which use specific layout policies to determine where components should go as a function of the size of the container. JPanel and JFrame are examples of container for Java. It is used to contain other GUI components. Window, panel, frame, dialogs, and applet are the container classes for AWT components. To work with Swing components, use component container JFrame, JPanel, JDialogs, and JApplet. Container used to group components. A layout manager is used to position and place components in the container. Examples of container classes, so we have JFrame, JPanel, JDialogs, and JApplet. JFrame is a window that is not contained inside another window. It is the container that holds other Swing user interface components. JPanel is an invisible container that holds user interface components. Panel can be nested. It can be placed inside a container that includes a panel. We are going to look into examples of JFrame and JPanel throughout these slides. JDialog, it is a pop-up window or message box to receive additional information from the user or provide notification that an event has occurred. JApplet is a subclass of applet. It must extend JApplet to create a Swing-based applet. Swing GUI Components. Component is a superclass of all the user interface classes. JComponent is a superclass of all the lightweight Swing components. JComponent is an abstract class, cannot use new JComponent to create an instance of JComponent. You can check back the notes on abstract classes. Use the constructor or subclasses of JComponent to create JComponent instances. An instance of a subclass can invoke the accessible method defined in its superclass. Swing GUI Components, the class hierarchy. So over here, we can see that what contains inside the Swing components. For example, over here, we have JLabel, JComboBox, JPanel, JButton, and many more. In GUI Helper Classes, here are showing the hierarchy of it. So the helper classes are not subclasses of component. They are used to describe the properties of GUI components such as graphics, context, colors, fonts, and dimension. Frame is a window that is not contained inside another window. Frame is the basis to contain other user interface components in Java GUI applications. The frame class can be used to create windows. The frame class contains rudimentary functionalities to support features found in any frame window. For Swing GUI programs, use JFrame class to create windows. There are two ways to create a window using JFrame. In the first approach, we need to declare and create an object of type JFrame, and then use various methods to manipulate the window. The second approach is by creating a class containing application program by extending the definition of class JFrame. It utilizes mechanism of inheritance. We are going to look into examples using both approaches. Creating frames using the first approach, which is by declaring and creating the object of type JFrame. So here we have JFrame frame equal to new frame inside the bracket my frame. So we are creating an object of JFrame. So when we write my frame inside our JFrame, that means that will be displayed as the name of our frame. You will see on the title bar, my frame will be displayed. The second line is frame.setSize 400, 300. So we are setting the width to 400 and then our height to 300. Then we have frame.setVisible true. This allows us to see the frame. If we set the visible to false, then the frame will not appear. In the next line, we have frame.setDefaultClose operation, jframe.exitOnClose. What happens here is when we close our frame, our program will end. If we don't set exit on close, if we close our frame, it will still run in the background. If you run this code, you will get this frame as your output. So set visible and set size methods, so those are in the component class. Set default close operation, exit on close, terminate when the frame is closed. If you want to know what other methods are available in the component class, you can always check the Java API. Now, we are creating frame using the second approach, which is using inheritance. So we still have the same import javax.swing, and we have public class myFrame extends JFrame, that is the inheritance. And then inside our main method, we are creating an object of our class. So we have myFrame equal to new myFrame. So now it will call the constructor of this class. So inside the constructor, where we have over here public myFrame, we are setting the title, set title myFrame, and then we are setting the size, set size, width is 400, height is 300, and then we are setting the visibility, set visible to true, and then set default close operation, exit on close. So these are doing the same thing as what we saw previously, only that this is using slightly different approach. In this approach, we are using inheritance. In the previous approach, we declare and create an object of type JFrame. Checking your understanding. So on online learning, I have posted a Java code called GUI. So in those code, I posted some questions as well. So the question that I wrote inside there are, what happens if we do JFrame frame equal to new JFrame? Right? So if you look at the previous example, we wrote JFrame frame equal to new JFrame, and then inside the bracket we have my frame. Right? So that my frame is the title bar. Right now, in this question, when we just write equal new JFrame, that means that we are not specifying what would be displayed in our title bar. If we are using the second approach, we can set whatever inside the title bar using setTitle method. The second question, we have in set size 400, 300, which is the width and which is the height. Make sure that you know which one comes first. Is it the width or is it the height? And then the next question, what happens if setVisible is set to false? Will your frame appear? You can try it out. What happens if we don't have this setDefaultClose operation? Try and run the example code and see what would happen. As I mentioned before, you can close the frame, but it won't exit. It will still run in the background. And the last question, how to center the JFrame? So this is quite interesting to try because you are looking through other methods that are available. So you can try and look at set location relative to set the JFrame to center. Go through the Java API to see in more detail about the methods available. The content pane of a frame. The content pane is where we put GUI objects such as buttons, labels, scroll bars, and others. We access the content pane by calling the frame's getContentPane method. So in this screenshot, we have the JFrame, and the gray area is the content pane of this frame. Changing the background color. Here's how we can change the background color of a content pane to blue. So we have container content pane equal to myFrame.getContentPane. ContentPane.setBackgroundColor.blue. So you will have your JFrame, and then the content pane, it will be changed to blue. We can also write it as myFrame.getContentPane.setBackgroundColorBlue. So this is the same as previously, only that we are writing it in one line rather than two lines. So question, what happens if we write myFrame.setBackgroundColorBlue? Does it change to blue? So the answer is no, because frame has nothing to do with the content area. When we want to set the background, we are setting the color in the content area, not the frame. Just to be clear, so we have our JFrame, and then we have our content pane where we can put any GUI objects inside of it. So when we want to change the background color, we are changing the background color of the content pane. I've posted this code on your online learning. Try and run it. So over here, we have our JFrame, and then we have set the content pane to have the color blue. Placing GUI objects on a frame. There are two ways to put GUI objects on the content pane of a frame. We can use a layout manager, or we can use the absolute positioning. We can fix the size and position of the objects. By using a layout manager, it is easier to adjust how it should look and the place of our objects. By default, we are using flow layout. There is also border layout, grid layout, and also other type of layout. Before we go into more details about layout, let's see how to place a button or any object of the GUI component on the JFrame. So a JButton object is a GUI component that represents a push button. Here is an example of how we can place a button with flow layout. To set the layout, we would write contentPane.setLayout new flow layout. We are specifying that we are using flow layout. And then we have our button. JButton, OK button equal to new JButton. And then we want it to display the word OK. We have another button. Same as before, J button, and we call it cancel button equal to new J button. We want it to display cancel. Now that we have our buttons, if we just run our code at that point, it will not be displayed. So, we need to add our button onto our content pane. To add the buttons, we will use the method called add. So, we will write content pane.add, and then we are adding our OK button. We will do the same thing for our cancel button by writing content pane.add cancel button. If the components are not shown in the container and your codes are correct, add these two lines, content pane.revalidate and also content pane.repane. So this will revalidate and also repane the components that you have. When placing GUI objects on a frame, say that if you have more than one button, you can always use an array to create the button object. And then using the for loop, you can add those buttons on the content pane. So it depends on what you want to do and how you want to write it in your program. I have uploaded the complete code of this on your online learning in the file called GUI1. Try and run it and see what would be the output of it.